Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I have a ton of reloading I have to get done today, so you guys are going to get a whole lot of videos of me doing this. Alright, I had a subscriber put up a question about Ronnie Coleman, and you guys know I did a video yesterday which I discussed that if you weight train properly and you know what you're doing and everything's on a balanced program, your technique is good, you know how to program it correctly, that you should never ever be hurt in the sense of your joints shouldn't hurt, your tendons shouldn't hurt, and they should never be broken down as a result of it. They should actually last 20 years longer than the general population. Everyone else, their stuff should wear out before yours if you live properly. And invariably, people throw in examples of the extreme examples, and of course, since there's a lot of bodybuilders who watch fitness stuff online, they throw in Ronnie Coleman, who, as you guys know, well, you may not know, a lot of you don't follow bodybuilding, which is great. It's probably to your advantage. But a lot of you know that he is all busted up. He won the Mr. Olympia so many times that I think I lost count. Again, those who don't know, the Mr. Olympia is the same thing Arnold Schwarzenegger was famous for winning multiple times. It is the top bodybuilding show in the world, highest paying, most recognized. So essentially, if you win it, you're number one in that competitive endeavor, that performing art. Well, Ronnie Coleman is known for using extremely bad form, for insanely heavy weights, and insanely high volumes. And he has been injured so badly that he's pretty much crippled and in a wheelchair now. So people, of course, want to use him as an example and say, hey, well, what about Ronnie Coleman? And it goes back to the point of, and I'm going to cover a lot of other people later also, but it goes back to this point that what makes you think Ronnie Coleman was training correctly? As a matter of fact, as I point out oftentimes, the overwhelming majority of bodybuilders, with exceptions, again, there's exceptions to every rule. And when I say the majority, I'm going to say I really mean 2/3, 3/4 of bodybuilders have no clue how to train. They know how to get big, how to get lean, how to use drugs. They don't necessarily understand how to train for actual strength, balance, joint health. They don't know how to program their training, and they push themselves to the limits. God, I just put that song in my head. I'm not going to sing it for you guys, though. A lot of you guys will know the song. Push it to the limit. All right, I'm not singing it. All right. But bodybuilders are notorious for this. And a lot of meatheads are notorious for this who aren't even necessarily bodybuilders. Powerlifters are guilty of this also. But the whole point is, if you're training to be in a competitive endeavor of some type, your body is going to be beat up. That's not fitness. That's not health. That's training to be competitive, often at the expense of your body, destroying your body. That's not the same thing. Most people who work out, I would hope, are working out to improve their lives, improve themselves. You know, oftentimes it's to look better. Of course, obviously, most people want to look better when they're naked or they have their clothes off when they exercise. That's just like an added bonus for a lot of people, even if you're doing it for health and fitness. And if you do train, you are probably going to look better than you did without training. So, again, that's different and that's understood. But when you are focused purely upon something else other than fitness or health, and you don't care about the health of your joints, and you just train in a way that destroys them without caring, don't even consider it into your programming, your technique, anything else, obviously it's going to be a problem. And anyone who does anything to the extreme is going to compromise something. And, you know, it's not just Ronnie Coleman here, because a lot of people are going to say, well, you know, he was the best, so obviously he had to do that. But you know what? There's guys on YouTube, plenty of guys on YouTube who are injured, always hurting. They teach you guys methods that are going to get you injured and get you hurt. And in a way, these guys are no better than the Ronnie Coleman example. I mean, I gave you guys a couple in the last week. I gave you guys Kenobi. I gave you guys Nick Wright. And I gave you guys Cassidy Campbell, who incidentally is trying to challenge me to some sort of strength contest. And all I'm going to say on that is I've already paid my dues. I've already competed in a strength sport, been invited to Worlds in the last few years, and it was all done publicly. I have nothing to prove. If he wants to compete in some strength thing, he can go compete on the platform in sanctioned competition and show what he can do, not some silly gym lifts on an exercise that he doesn't even know how to perform correctly, in which he's going to destroy himself because he'd never learned how to train. He went straight to drugs after hanging out with Michael Trend, and has never even bothered to learn basic technique. And this kid is going to snap himself up real soon using his horrible technique and gaining strength so quickly from the drugs. He's just going to snap himself up. And it's a train wreck waiting to happen. And I don't want to facilitate watching him destroy himself. And I have nothing to prove. I've already paid my dues in the competitive environment. I've already got my medals. I have no desire to further beat my body up. I care about fitness and health at this point. I like being strong. Yeah, I still deadlift 500 pounds for reps beltless multiple times per week. But I don't push myself to the limits. I'm not trying to deadlift 600 for reps. I'm not trying to bust myself up or compete with people. I've already paid my dues. Now, I don't want to end up like Ronnie Coleman. I don't want to end up like some of these other guys are going to be. I've managed to make it this far to 39, about to be 40 in December, with my body intact. No interest in this stuff, but that's a side tangent. But not really, because when you think about it, it's all the same. All these YouTubers, who else did I say Nick Wright already? Yeah, the list could go on and on. All of these guys who are hurting themselves because they don't know how to train, well, this is no better than the Ronnie Coleman example I just gave. I mean, at the end of the day, these people are all going to be hurt. They're all going to be injured because they don't know how to train properly. And that's what we're talking about when I say that if you train correctly, you train enough to adapt, you train enough to continue to gain muscle, continue to gain strength, to continue to progress for many, many years, but you're not pushing yourself to the limits. And, in my case, I don't consider doing a few reps with 500 pounds on the deadlift to be pushing my limits. That's well below what I'm capable of doing. It's not hurting me because I built up to that over many years and have been stronger than that, and so it's not a big deal for me to do that. As long as you progress nice and slow, you keep everything balanced, you know how to deload, you know how to program, you know how to listen to your body, you don't use excessive workloads, you don't use excessive volumes, your body is going to get stronger. You're going to maintain your joints and your connective tissue, and that is fitness, that's health. So when people try to use these examples of other people, of, well, then how come this? Well, because they didn't do what I said. They are not training in a way that builds their joints and connective tissue up. They're training in a way that's destructive. They're destroying their bodies, which is ironic that people tend to call that endeavor bodybuilding when it's not. It's body destroying the way many perform it, and not just Ronnie Coleman, but the Nick Wrights and the Kenobis or Kinobody or whatever you call them. This stuff is destroying their bodies also, and there's plenty of other examples on YouTube. And all these guys are eventually going to have busted up bodies that need surgeries because they're not building their bodies, they're destroying their bodies. They're building some musculature to look pretty. And I'm going to jump on Kenobi more later because he's done some really silly stuff that people have pointed out to me. So later this week, I'll go ahead and finish them off. But yeah, in general, if you train like Ronnie Coleman, of course you should expect to be destroyed. And how do I feel about that? I don't know. I guess Ronnie's happy with it. He's happy because he made, his money. He got his fame. He won the Mr. Olympia. I don't even know. Was it 8 times? 9 times? Is anybody even counting anymore? I mean, as far as that endeavor is concerned, he is probably considered to be the GOAT. But was it worth it? I don't know. I can't assess that, but what I can assess is that people who are doing the same stuff, who are destroying their bodies instead of building their bodies up, who aren't getting $1 million out of it or $3 million out of it and international recognition for it, you guys need to step back and ask, what are you doing? Because you aren't Ronnie Coleman. In fact, most of you aren't even making a living off of it. I mean, at least the YouTubers who are doing this, they are making a living off of it. I mean, YouTube pays pretty well when you've got a big audience. So, you know, they're making a living at least, but is it going to be worth it to them in the end? Probably not, unless they make a fortune doing this. The way they're destroying themselves is not going to be worth it. And what sucks for all of you watching and taking advice from all of these clowns is that because you haven't signed an agreement with them, they're not your coach, you can't even sue them for injuring you. Because they are going to injure you guys eventually if you take their advice. And if you're taking the advice of guys who are injured and hurting and busted up and have you doing partial reps, that's your dead giveaway right there, by the way, when you see these guys doing a lot of just partial movements where they're skipping the lockouts, partial curls, everything else. That's when you know these are guys who really don't understand training and they're going to hurt you. That's usually one of your dead giveaways, by the way. But, yeah, it's not just the Ronnie Colemans. It's not just the top power lifters who are hurting themselves. It's basically basic YouTubers, YouTube fitness guys all the time. You know, we can say what you want about Mike Chang or Scooby or any of these guys, but you don't see them all busted up. And they still look good. They're still in shape, and they're not all busted up. Talking about their joints hurting all the time. Their connective tissue hurting. Something people might want to think about there when they're selecting who they want to get their advice from. No, they're not hardcore. But they're fit. They're making progress. They're not walking around injured. Can you say the same about a lot of the other people you might be trying to emulate or you get advice from? No. So the whole point of my other video is that if you do this stuff correctly, you shouldn't have these problems. You're going to be okay. You're not going to be injured. Your connective tissue and your joints are going to be a lot stronger 5 years, 10 years, 20 years into your training than everyone else in your age bracket. Everyone else that you know is going to have weaker connective tissue and joints than you do. They build them up and preserve them over time. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.